I suspect my girlfriend is cheating on me with a rich guy. She's pretty and broke, and lately, she's been really distant with me. But what really got me was when I accidentally saw her phone that night. A guy she saved as daddy sent her $200,000. I took her photo to a private investigator, hoping to get proof and reclaim the money I spent on her over the past 3 years. But the detective almost fell to his knees, begging me to let it go. Please, don't make me investigate her. No one dares to do this. Here's how it all started. On the 10th day of suspecting my girlfriend was cheating on me, I went to the detective agency. I placed my phone on the table and slid it over to the private investigator across from me. My throat tightened as I tried to keep my emotions in check. This is all the chat history I could get. The rest must be regularly deleted, I said. The detective glanced at the phone. The chat I secretly took a photo of last night was just 1 page, and it was only from that rich guy. Still mad at me? Here's $200,000. You must see me tomorrow, the message read. The detective raised an eyebrow, unfazed. So, David, how can I help you? I forced a smile, but my eyes stung with unshed tears. I need you to get solid proof of their meetings. The kind that would ruin them if exposed. She might not care about her reputation, but that rich guy surely does. She wants to be with a wealthy man, fine. But I've supported her financially for 3 years, and I need that money back. The next image was her photo. The detective glanced at me, a hint of surprise and a touch of admiration in his eyes. He swiped through the screen. With a loud thud, he tossed the phone onto the table, his face turning pale. He stared at me, wide-eyed. Are you out of your mind? Why are you showing me her picture? I was taken aback, thinking I might have shown the wrong photo. But no, it was the right one. What's wrong with the picture? That's my girlfriend. 3 years ago, she accidentally hit my car and broke her leg. After paying her hospital bills, we got to know each other through that accident, fell in love, and she's been living with me in my tiny apartment for 3 years. Lately, she's been distant, always busy with work, leaving early and coming home late, and constantly texting someone behind my back. The detective's expression turned incredulous, his gaze becoming more intense. Are you out of your mind? Trying to marry into a wealthy family? This is Mary Smith, the heiress of a construction empire. You think she's your girlfriend? She's worth millions, and there are countless men trying to win her over. What are you thinking? I suggest you get your head checked. Before coming to the detective, I had considered many reasons for her behavior. Maybe she was tired of me, wanted to break up, fell for someone else, or just had enough of being poor. I was prepared for any of these scenarios, ready to end things peacefully, but I never imagined she could be an heiress. So, after leaving the detective's office, I went straight to the most exclusive club in town. This was the place the rich guy had insisted Mary meet him last night. I didn't want to cause a scene. I just wanted to ask why and end things with some dignity. As I approached the private room, I overheard their conversation. Mary, we all owe you an apology. It wasn't that we didn't want to help you back then, but your father insisted on toughening you up. But you sure know how to play the game. Your dad cut off all your financial support, but who would have thought you could use your charm to hook up with a hard-working, poor guy? You've been living quite comfortably these past 3 years, haven't you? I froze at the door, stunned by what I was hearing. But seriously, your dad's 3-year ban ended a month ago. Why are you still not going home? Your mom even called us all here today to get you to come back. Are you really planning to stay in that tiny apartment instead of moving back to your mansion? Did you actually fall for that poor guy? Absolutely not, Mary snapped, her voice filled with resentment. David is the most embarrassing part of my life these past 3 years. I can't wait to get rid of him and go back to my real life. But if he finds out who I really am, he'll probably cling to me for money. It's better to break up slowly and give him some cash as compensation for taking care of me. Everything suddenly made sense. I reached up to touch my cheek and felt the wetness of my tears. I hadn't even realized I was crying. Young man, are you looking for someone? Why are you crying? A gentle voice asked from beside me. I turned to see a well-dressed woman standing there, looking at me with concern. Our eyes met, and she gasped, "You're David." The conversation inside the room abruptly stopped. Within a minute, the door flew open, and Mary appeared. her face filled with panic. Her eyes darted to the woman standing behind me, and her expression froze. She instinctively reached out to grab my hand but stopped midway, her hand hanging in the air before dropping back down. Her voice was icy. "You came here looking for David? This isn't a coincidence that he's here today, right?" Mrs. Smith shook her head and smiled warmly. "I've known about David for a while. After all, I couldn't stop caring about your life while you were out in the world. Seeing you two in a serious relationship for 3 years made me quite happy. I thought you were just waiting for us to ask you to back home." My heart ached with bitterness. I looked at Mary, who now seemed like a stranger, and forced a smile. "Mary, you didn't need to play these games to break up. I might be poor, but I know my place. As long as you pay me what I'm owed, I'll disappear and never bother you again." I took a deep breath and wiped my tears with the back of my hand, trying to sound casual. "Let's see, a year's rent and living expenses, I'd say $50,000 is fair. So, for 3 years, that's $150,000. I paused, remembering Mary's job as a real estate agent with a base salary of $3,000 a month and no commissions. No wonder her performance was always at the bottom, and she never got fired despite taking half a year off to recover from her leg injury. It was her family's company. The hallway fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked at Mary, who stared back at me with an unreadable expression. After a long pause, she lowered her eyes and let out a cold, emotionless laugh. It was a laugh I had never seen from her before. "You're good at math." My heart sank, the pain almost unbearable, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I shrugged self-deprecatingly. "Mary, isn't this what you've been doing for the past 3 years? You never really cared about me, never planned a future with me. You just wanted to live comfortably without spending your own money, so you strung me along." I pushed down the wave of pain in my chest, my hands clenching into fists. I looked at Mary, noticing her face had turned pale and her eyes were cold and piercing. She seemed really angry, and it suddenly hit me. Mary probably hadn't gotten all her family's money yet. "Mrs. Smith," I said. Mrs. Smith raised an eyebrow, glancing at Mary before smiling at me. "Are you sure you want to cut ties with such a good guy?" Mary pressed her lips together, her eyes flickering with some unreadable emotion before settling into a cold stare. "I've already said, taking over the company is my limit. I can't live a life tied to just one person. It's too boring." My heart ached, and I clenched my fists unconsciously. Mrs. Smith kept smiling, but there was a hint of something deeper in her eyes. "That's a shame," she said, pulling out her checkbook and starting to write. "Skills and character can be developed, but love is something you have to figure out on your own. As parents, the only thing we can do." She paused, her pen stopping mid-sentence. Mrs. Smith's eyes softened as she handed me the check. "Is make sure David gets the what he deserves, $1 million. Honestly, the moment I took that check, I didn't feel sad at all. I didn't know what a poor guy like me would do with sudden wealth, but I quietly went to the bank to cash the check. Then I went back to my apartment and, in a silent frenzy, destroyed everything that had ever belonged to Mary. Standing in the wreckage, I looked at my bank balance, then decisively walked out the door and headed back to the exclusive club. I wanted the strongest drink, the biggest room, and the most beautiful women. Looking at the line of women in front of me, I sighed and picked the 2 most stunning ones. "You two, go take a shower first." The women hesitated, looking awkward. The prettiest one spoke up after a few seconds. "Sorry, David, but we don't offer that kind of service." I took a swig of my drink, feeling the alcohol hit me hard. I walked over, grabbed her chin, and said, "Don't play games with me." The woman froze, not because of my slurred words, but because I started crying. Silent tears fell to the floor as the emotions I'd been holding back all day finally broke free. I covered my face with one hand and sobbed uncontrollably. The next afternoon, I was woken up by my phone vibrating. My head pounded from the hangover. I groaned, rolled over, and patted the person next to me. "Mary, can you get that?" My words trailed off as I stared at the beautiful, unfamiliar face in front of me. It took me a moment to realize I was sandwiched between 2 women. As my mind cleared, memories of the previous night came flooding back. I had spent the entire night in the arms of these two women, drinking and crying. I hadn't done anything else. I just wanted to drown my heartbreak in their warmth. The phone was still vibrating. One of the women frowned and mumbled something. I snapped back to reality and quickly answered the call, my voice hoarse. Hello? There was a brief pause on the other end before Mary's clear voice came through. Where are you? Why aren't you home? I frowned, suddenly wide awake. I had deleted her from my contacts, but forgot to block her number. What do you want, Mary? There was a pause, and her voice turned colder. I need to get my things. Come back now. I was taken aback. All that junk? I smashed it all. It's gone. Just buy new stuff. If there's nothing else, I'm blocking you. The line went silent except for the faint sound of static. After a long pause, she asked stubbornly, Where are you? Suddenly, the phone died. I looked at the screen, realizing it had run out of battery. One of the women next to me stirred, wrapping her arms around me. I suddenly understood why Mary had said living with one person was boring. But I never expected that in such a large club, there would only be 7 women willing to work. At my rate of 2 women a day, I found myself with the same woman, Lily, on the 4th day. Our eyes met, and I felt awkward, but she smiled warmly and introduced herself again. I'm Lily. Nice to serve you again. Just then, the door burst open, and Mary walked in, her face like a storm. My mind went into overdrive. I tried to shut the door, but Mary wedged her foot in, glaring at me with a near-snarling smile. Are other women's arms warm enough for you, David? Warm enough to sleep with 8 women in 4 days? Mary's sudden outburst left me stunned. She didn't say anything else, just pushed the door open and stood there, glaring at the remaining woman in the room. Her voice was icy. Get out before I make you. I was confused. I had taken the money and kept my promise not to bother her. Why was she still so unhappy? And how did she even find me here? Mary's expression hardened, and she pressed her lips together. I need to get my things. I felt a lump in my throat and took a few deep breaths. Don't you have a key? I lost it, she said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I closed my eyes, trying to calm down. I really did smash everything, Mary. If you want, just tell me how much it's worth, and I'll pay you back. Mary raised an eyebrow and smirked. How much money do you have left? I'll go back and check. Her question was so unsettling that for a moment, I thought even $1 million might not be enough. Maybe there was something valuable in that pile of junk that I didn't recognize. Otherwise, why would she care so much? As Lily left, Mary paused and looked at the 2 women. Lily opened her mouth but didn't say anything, which was enough for Mary to understand. She gave a cold smile. No wonder you picked her twice. She's quite pretty. In the 2-seater sports car, Mary and I sat side by side. She tapped her fingers on the steering wheel and asked casually, Did you really fall for that woman? I frowned and didn't answer. I didn't think we were in a place to have a calm discussion about this. Just then, the car's screen lit up with an incoming call from someone named Seth. Mary, where are you? Are you coming to the party? Seth's voice asked. Mary's brow furrowed, and her voice was cold. I'm busy. Not coming. What are you busy with? You've been back for 4 days and haven't come out once. Mary glanced at me, her lips pressed into a thin line. You guys have fun, she said, ending the call abruptly. The car fell silent again as she started the engine. Thanks to you, Mary said suddenly. I've been back for 4 days and haven't had a moment to myself. Meanwhile, you've been living it up, spending money on women that I gave you. I was taken aback, then laughed bitterly. Wasn't the compensation money supposed to be spent however I wanted? If there were restrictions, that would be a different price. Mary laughed too. What if I want to put restrictions on it? Would that cost extra? Her words hit me hard, and I paused, trying to process what she was saying. So, the excuse of getting her things was just a cover. Mary actually wanted to control who I saw. I didn't dare to think she was jealous or possessive. It was more like she didn't want anyone else to have what she discarded. How exactly would you restrict me? I asked, my smile turning colder. Buy me out so I don't see other women for the rest of my life? If I'm not mistaken, that's called marriage when both parties agree. Otherwise, it's just being a kept man. And you definitely don't want the first option, so it must be the second. Aren't you worried about me being a stain on your reputation? I laughed sarcastically. Mary frowned, her voice cold and her fingers trembling with anger. It's not like that. I took a deep breath and laughed even harder. No marriage, no keeping. We probably won't have any contact in the future. So why do you want to control me? Mary swerved the car to the side of the road and stopped. She pressed her lips together, and I couldn't tell if she was speechless or just hadn't figured it out herself. But it didn't matter. Sorry, not gonna happen. I opened the car door and got out, walking away with tears in my eyes. This bitter end with Mary made me decide on my next step after getting rich. Leave New York forever. If I wanted to cut someone out of my life completely, it wasn't hard. With money, I could live anywhere I wanted. I heard some real estate agents chatting nearby about Mary. So, our little princess is back from her studies abroad and ready to take over the company. Think the real estate market's gonna change? Mary's nothing compared to her brother. Nothing's gonna change much. The real star was her older brother, Tom. Too bad he passed away 3 years ago. Mary, the spoiled heiress, even with 3 more years of training, won't make a difference. Their gossip about the company kept catching my ear. I lowered my head, continuing to browse houses online while waiting for my agent to take me for a viewing. Just then, my phone buzzed with a friend request. I accepted it, seeing a profile picture of a beautiful woman. Are you a real estate agent? I messaged. The reply came quickly, with a hint of resignation. I can be, but I'd rather stay your friend. I was stunned. Lily? She sent a nodding emoji and then a message that made my eyes widen. I got fired. Can't make it in New York anymore. Heading back home. Want to grab a meal before I go? Lily's job loss was a surprise. It wasn't Mary's doing. The drama Mary caused at the club that night got Lily, the only one Mary singled out, in trouble with the club owner. To avoid further issues, they let her go. We ordinary folks can't afford to cross paths with the rich. I took a swig of my beer and looked at Lily sitting next to me. Why stay in New York, struggling to serve the rich? Why not come with me and make money somewhere else? Lily leaned back in her chair, smiling sweetly and casually. She raised an eyebrow. Just so you know, I might have the looks, but I don't sell my body. I never expected to get another call from Mary, let alone that she would know I was leaving. It was 9 p.m. when her voice, no longer calm and cold, jolted me awake. Where are you taking her? She demanded. I looked at the unfamiliar number on the screen and frowned. None of your business. Just know you'll never have to deal with me again. Enjoy your life as a spoiled princess. I was about to hang up when Mary, as if sensing it, spoke with a shaky voice. David, don't hang up. I didn't respond, just pressed the end call button and looked out the car window at the night sky. Lily, wake up. We're almost there. I spent over $600,000 on a house in New York, but the remaining $300,000 was enough to buy my parents a new home back in my hometown and rent a 2-story building with Lily to start an art school. Standing in front of the under-renovation building, I raised an eyebrow and patted Lily's shoulder, feeling an inexplicable surge of confidence. Lily, however, looked hesitant and finally spoke up. You've got guts. I heard Mary almost tore apart the airport when we left New York. Her dad had to step in to calm things down. Aren't you worried? Worried about what? I smiled, looking down. It's not like she loves me. Lily turned to me, her eyes full of confusion. Didn't they say Mary was studying abroad for the past 3 years? How did you two meet? Car accident, I said, rubbing my right wrist instinctively. I broke my arm, and we ended up in the same hospital. We got close over time. Her studying abroad was probably just a cover story. When are you leaving? Lily asked softly, looking down. I shrugged. The day after tomorrow, if everything looks good with the school. With you here, I can trust things will be fine. I just need to get away and clear my head for a bit. Suddenly, Lily grabbed my hand, and when I looked up, I saw Mary across the street. Her pink Porsche was parked at the corner, and she was leaning against it in a beige coat, staring at me through the crowd. Lily quickly let go of my hand and instinctively hid behind me. I sighed and patted Lily's arm. I'll be right back. The The driver got out of the car and kindly closed the door behind me. Before I could say anything, Mary leaned her head on my shoulder, looking utterly exhausted. I instinctively wanted to push her away, but then she whispered, "David, I'm so tired." I frowned and moved towards the car door, making her lose her support. "If you have something to say, just say it. Why are you here?" Mary's head fell, and she let out a bitter laugh, slowly opening her eyes and leaning back in the seat. "I came to find an excuse to see you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mary, are you out of your mind?" Mary coughed lightly and rubbed her temples. "Pretending to be poor to deceive you was wrong. Denying my feelings for you was also wrong. I admit it all. When I first met you, I was a terrible person. Otherwise, my dad wouldn't have cut off my financial support. But seeing you as a stain on my life wasn't true. I just didn't want to admit that I delayed going home because I liked you. So, I made up excuses." She turned on her phone and showed me a picture of a boy and a girl who looked a bit like me. "This is my brother, Tom. With him around, I had more freedom in my growth. But when he passed away suddenly, my parents needed me to take over. They wanted to mold me into the perfect heir. Where were they when I was a kid, waiting for them to come home from work? I don't blame them, but I hate the feeling of tying my emotions to someone and being let down. Liking you meant tying my hopes to someone again, and it felt like my parents had finally tamed me." Mary laughed at herself. "The first time, I was stubborn, and you took the money and left, turning to other women. The second time, I panicked, and you thought I wanted to keep you. So you left New York with that woman. The third time, here I am, trying again." She coughed uncontrollably, her lips pale, and stared at me with a bitter smile. "You ran so fast, I was afraid I wouldn't catch up." I pressed my lips together, unsure of what I was feeling. After a long silence, I spoke softly. "Don't overthink it. Let it go. You won't catch up. Whether you settle down or not doesn't matter to me. Do whatever you want. I don't want any part of it." I could understand Mary's reasons, but the consequences of her actions shouldn't be my burden to bear. Honesty and loyalty are the foundations of a fair relationship. No normal woman should be praised for being faithful and truthful. It's just expected. Her reasons didn't justify her actions. Our relationship was doomed from the moment she chose to deceive me. Continuing it would only lead to more mistakes. Because of Mary's sudden appearance, I moved up my travel date by a day. But when I unexpectedly saw her familiar face in the first-class seat next to mine, I felt a wave of frustration. "Hi, I'm Mary. Can we start over?" she asked. "Mary, didn't I make myself clear yesterday?" I said, exasperated. Mary's smile faltered, and she withdrew her hand, looking down. "I was just afraid Lily would take you away." I couldn't help but think of Lily's hug at the airport. I settled into the comfortable seat, ignoring Mary, and sent Lily a text before the flight took off, boarded. Mary wasn't just following me for fun. Most of the time, she stayed in the hotel, working. "Where are you heading next? Have you booked it?" Mary asked seriously as we sat in the hotel restaurant. "I have a business deal I need to handle. If I can't make it back in time, I'll go to your next destination," she said. "Hawaii," I replied flatly. Mary nodded. But in reality, my next stop was Salt Lake City. Since she wouldn't listen to my rejections, I had to find my own way to shake her off. And honestly, lying felt pretty satisfying. I was wrong. I didn't shake her off. On the plane, Mary appeared in the seat next to mine again, looking even paler than before. She coughed lightly and forced a smile. "It's okay. I can find you." My fists clenched at my sides, my calm facade starting to crack. I took a deep breath and spoke in a low, firm voice. "Mary, stop this." Mary's expression stiffened, her fingers nervously tightening. She spoke even softer. "I just want to be the first person you see if you ever look back." The problem was, I stared at her coldly. "I don't want to see you. Seeing the same face every day is boring to me now, okay?" Mary's eyes filled with a sadness she didn't know how to handle. She lowered her gaze and nodded. "Fine. I won't let you see me. Just know that I'm here." My anger flared, and my voice rose. "Mary, do you have any self-respect?" Mary's eyes glistened with tears, and she gave a bitter smile. I had too much self-respect before, and that's how I ended up here. My man is about to run off with another woman. Why should I care about self-respect now? I didn't know what Mary did, but for the next 3 months of my travels, she really didn't show up in front of me again. Lily was sitting on the couch in my hotel room. The art school had a few days off, so she came to visit me in the city I was traveling to. She arrived in the middle of the night. Later, I found out something I didn't really want to know, but Lily paused, looking down and sighing. I can't keep this to myself. I squeezed the beer can in my hand. Lily gave a bitter smile. From the time we left New York until the art school opened, Mary didn't come looking for you because she was begging for her dad's forgiveness. She agreed to all his conditions, with one exception. She asked him not to stop her from getting you back. She said she only wanted you for the rest of her life. Immediately, I thought of Mary's pale face and constant coughing. She must have been exhausted. The room fell silent for a few minutes. Lily didn't say anything more, and I pressed my lips together. I'm going to take out the trash. You should head back to your room. There was a trash can in the room, but I just didn't want to hear any more. Lily understood and didn't stop me. I never expected that when I opened the stairwell door, someone would collapse at my feet. The sudden figure startled me, but then I was shocked to see it was Mary. She was sitting on the floor, her right wrist tied to the door handle with a rope. When she saw me, she quickly untied herself and stood up, looking flustered. I didn't mean to. What are you doing here? I asked, bewildered by the sight of her sitting in the stairwell, looking half asleep. I didn't know how long you'd stay or when your flight was. If I slept in my room, I wouldn't hear you leave, Mary said, pulling down the sleeve of her white hoodie. But I had already seen the red marks on her wrist. Mary, you're crazy, I said, shaking my head and giving her a long look before turning to leave. Mary suddenly grabbed my hand, her voice urgent. I'm not crazy. Please don't be mad. I'll be more careful. I won't let you see me again. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes for a few seconds, and then pulled my hand away from hers. If you want to work yourself to death, do it far away from me. Don't die near me. Lily stayed with me for 5 days, and maybe my words had an effect because Mary didn't show up again. She's in the hospital, Lily said suddenly as we sat in the taxi heading to the airport. She had been staring at me for a while before speaking. What? I asked, stunned. She worked herself too hard and passed out in the stairwell. I took her to the hospital, Lily said, sighing and patting my shoulder. You should go see her. Check her pockets. Mary was in the hospital because of sheer exhaustion. She was sitting on the hospital bed, getting in 4, with a laptop on her lap, looking serious as she worked. When she saw me, her eyes brightened a bit. Why are you here? She asked. I didn't say anything, just walked to the coat rack by her bed and reached into her coat pocket. Mary's expression changed, but she just sat there, watching me. I pulled out a neatly folded piece of paper and opened it. One glance and I gasped. It was a will, stating that all of Mary's properties would be transferred to me upon her death. My fingers went numb, and I found it hard to breathe. Aren't you afraid of making your parents furious? They know, Mary said calmly, so you don't have to worry about me dying near you. I have my will with me. Mary, you're insane. What kind of person does this? I threw the will back on the bed and turned to leave. David, where are you going next? Mary asked, her voice desperate. I stopped, my hand trembling at my side. Without turning around, I heard her voice, filled with sadness. Just tell me. I turned back and walked quickly to her bedside. For the first time in my life, I cursed at someone. You're a lunatic. Mary pressed her lips together but managed to smile. So, where are you going next? Come on, let's go home, I said. Mary burst into tears of joy. Back at the art school, Lily and Mary were constantly at odds. After a long day, I came home to find them both on my bed. I sighed. Can I sleep in the middle? Mary and Lily exchanged glances and suddenly burst into laughter. Mary patted the bed, signaling me to sit down. Her eyes twinkled with mischief. David, I have a proposal. I looked at her, puzzled. What proposal? Let's start a new company together, Mary said. With my resources and your talents, we can make something great. Lily raised an eyebrow. Are you serious? Mary nodded. Yes. I've already talked to my parents, and they're willing to invest. I was stunned. I didn't expect things to take this turn. Lily looked surprised too, but she quickly regained her composure. We'll need a detailed plan. Mary smiled and pulled out a document from her bag, handing it to us. Lily and I looked it over and found it to be thorough and well thought out, considering all possible risks and opportunities. Did you really prepare this? I asked, incredulous. Mary nodded. Yes, I know I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, but I really want to make things right. I hope we can create something beautiful together. Lily looked at me and then nodded. All right, I'm willing to give it a try. I took a deep breath, feeling the darkness in my heart slowly lift. Then let's do it together. From that day on, the three of us embarked on a new journey. Despite the arguments and conflicts along the way, we stayed committed to our shared goal. In the end, our company achieved great success, and our relationships grew stronger. Sometimes, the unexpected twists in life can lead to surprisingly beautiful outcomes.